So why do things have to change? As you can see, I'm rocking my Nordiques hat, my old school vest from the 2000, my shirt with the art from the 1990s. And I'm just kind of feeling nostalgic. I went to the mall today and we had kind of nothing to do essentially. It's still a really, really snowy, dreary day in Toronto. Just nothing seems to be going right. And so we said, you know what? We'll stay away from people, stay away from friends. We canceled with a bunch of people. We said, we're just going to go to the mall, kick it, hang out, talk about life with the people that you meet, and keep our distance, of course. We don't want to get anybody sick. So we got on the go. It was super icy today. Just trying to make sure that my wifey doesn't fall down, that the kiddos are okay. There was like these massive icy patches under the drifts of snow, which can be treacherous if you know anything about snow. And we made it to the mall. It was a bit tricky. People are, really anxious to get in there. I think it's March break. There's a lot of parents that want to take their kids somewhere, but they don't really got anywhere to go. And that is obviously a difficult situation as we were experiencing that. So we jump into the mall and we're just kind of moving around, and me and my wife just felt this deep nostalgia. It wasn't too busy at the time, and we were just kind of loafing around. We sat down on a bench. We're feeding our kids some rice cake and edamame mix and just a bunch of, wholesome, good old treats, things that aren't going to make them go cray cray, but at the same time, super portable. We weren't feeling like spending thousands of dollars. We were at a very fancy, expensive mall. Those of you in Toronto probably figure it out where we're at. And so we were, just hanging out there and just enjoying it. And I had that nostalgia bug bite me, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, how did it come to this? How did it come to a lot of these malls, just kind of fading away as you see these stores closing? And I quickly checked myself because there's a verse in the Bible that says that we should not, it's in Proverbs, but we shouldn't dwell on the days of old and say essentially that, those were the good old days. And you hear that a lot in life and at work with probably your parents, your grandparents, like, oh, if you had lived in my day or you had seen things in my day, you would have seen how it was really like, or how life was, in its apex. I actually have some coworkers who constantly will be saying, oh, something along the lines of eating meatballs in the 70s or eating meatballs now. And they like, oh, the meatballs are filled with garbage now, and it's not like Nona's, which is Italian for grandma. It's not like Nona's meatballs, or they'll talk about the arcades, or they just go on and on about how the 60s, 70s, and 80s were like the best time in history. And I think like every generation does that, to the point where King Solomon had to address it. And we assume King Solomon had to address it in Proverbs by saying, like, this is not something, or is it Ecclesiastes? Anyway, one of those two books where he addresses it and says, it's not actually the best thing to do to sit around and talk about how good the good old days were. We're living in the now. And so as much as like I enjoyed the nostalgia of the mall, and I wish that it was growing and bustling, to how it used to be, and there were smaller stores and people were thriving. Things are just going to be different, and I can't dwell in that too long. That doesn't mean that a situation is better, or that a situation, shouldn't be like it was maybe in the past, but it's different, and the sociology of the psychology of a culture or a people group is different. And so, we have to kind of just roll with that, and just understand that, things are going to change. Now, what is right and wrong about mall life? Well, of course, over commercialization, and just kind of force feeding images and thoughts into young people's minds and people's heads about shopping and shopping and shopping. But I must say, it did bring people together. There was a deeper sense of community, and I really was dwelling on the idea that it was ever since more or less COVID, where these situations kind of started to really spring up on us, where, I read just statistically, I think it was I think it was either within the last month or quarter, or maybe it was last year. I don't want to blow things out of proportion, but 50,000 businesses across Canada closed down recently. I can't exactly remember what was the actual time frame, but 50,000 businesses. You know, if you think about it, there's 40 million people in Canada or so. Like, that is pretty nutty that 50,000 of those patrons, those people, you know, their livelihoods were cut short. Man, it's just nutty. So I just started, you know, kind of reminiscing, and I was thinking about that throughout the day. And that's kind of why I got my old school gear on. I got my t-shirt art from the 90s, my vest from the 2000s, my hat from the 90s. And I was just like, all right, you know, I just kind of want to remember and relive those days when you could go to the theater for $2, you know, on Toonie Tuesday, $3 normally, and just enjoy, I guess, life without cell phones. 'Cause that was the other thing. I was in the mall, and it's just unreal how many people have their faces in their phones, or they're listening to something and they don't know how to communicate with each other. And I'm like sounding like the old head that, you know, the old heads at my work, or how my parents used to be, or how my grandparents used to talk when I was young. And at that time they were talking about TV, and, you know, people standing and sitting in front of the TV all day, or reading the newspaper, or you know, just being on, you know, the landline phone. And I never used to get them, but I'm understanding it. But at the same time, I know I have to fight those feelings, because they're not good. It's biblical. They're not good to dwell on those times and say those were the good old days. Can we extract good moments from those times? Absolutely. Can we enjoy those times and remember those times fondly? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's that fixation that we normally have as human beings, and we kind of try to recreate that type of world or living situation. I think that's where things go wrong, where a generation, not even just about like the mall, like I'm talking about, or joking about like clothes, but it's just each iteration, each generation has its own problems it has to deal with. And again, if you don't look into the past, you'll essentially repeat what was done in the past into the future, which will make that a terrible situation for history, or we'll be bound to repeat history if we do not look back into it. And so I think there's a difference between looking into our past and making good decisions, and realizing the failures as well as the good things. And there's a difference between that and fixating on it. And I don't think I was really fixating on wanting the malls back. I just don't like how things are kind of shifting. And it's not all over the place. Like, I do love the fact that I can do this with you. I'm doing the dishes, I'm chatting away, I'm doing a recording for those of you who are watching in the future, and I'm just able to bring forth my own interpretation into the world, good or bad, or whatever percentage it might be, about what I see in the day that, you know, 99.9% of the people watching this will never meet me, never be able to hear, or would have never heard what I have to say if it wasn't for technology. So I'm very thankful that, you know, there is that ability to spread good information, but with that comes a lot of bad information too. So I think really and truly what that verse in Proverbs or Ecclesiastes is referring to is, I think, an overall lifestyle over an individual topic or thing. Now, if you continually, you know, have like 50 topics or 50 things that always go back to one generation, and you separate it over time, well, essentially you're just thinking about living in the good old days, which is what the Bible is essentially telling us not to do. So obviously, I am not going against the Bible and telling you to reminisce about the good old days all the time. Definitely not doing that. But I think there are times where there are moments where things worked better for you in those situations. Now, I understand that with the world getting busier, it's much easier for people to buy online, shop online, do things in the moment. I really do get that. However, it's also led to a lot of overproduction of products. I just watched a documentary about the waste that the fashion industry and the commercial industry does in general, and we are, going through waste at 10 times faster than we did even, I think, 10 or 15 years ago. And that was propelled by online shopping and the ease of online shopping, and the ease of disposable products, which obviously is being made at someone's expense. Because if you think for a second that what you're getting for a very cheap price or getting multiples of is not at someone's expense, you're kidding yourself. We just sadly live in a world, and I have been guilty of this in the past, where if you buy something at a cheap price, somebody somewhere is getting gypped, whether it's within their community, they're losing resources, or there's a horrible plant giving off nasty toxins, or whether it's people who are working for terrible wages, or whether it's those cargo transport trucks that are also transporting a lot of evil along with them, or the people working long retail hours, or the people who are having to ship these products out to you individually who aren't getting a proper living wage, or the amount of returns that are made that they end up having to trash, and then it goes to the landfills. And I'm not negative. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy about this, and just only drop like I have a higher moral ground. I do shop online as well, but the key is that are we conscientious about the shopping that we do? Are we willing to spend a little bit less and maybe get something that's more quality, that we kind of research a little bit? And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that it is a dumb idea to have people and companies shipping from all over the world and giving people jobs that wouldn't have jobs. Definitely not saying that at all. If you think I'm saying that, then I'm presenting my information in the wrong way. It's more so, are we being conscientious about commercialism, about the things that we need to buy now? And granted, like I said before, I was just cruising the mall and enjoying what the mall had to offer today, and just the really high ceilings and the windows, and such a cold, miserable day and the sun pouring through. It was just a wonderful feeling that I haven't had since I was in my high school or even my 20s, and I'm hoping that some of these places can stay alive just as a hub to just even watch teenagers not be in their phones 24/7, for them to just be communicating with each other it's really nice to see. It's quite refreshing to see, and it just it can bring the worst out of people too. I've been a part of I've been witness to those jewelry smash and grabs, I think they're called, where you have people who are obviously either criminals or they're stuck for cash or whatever it might be, and they smash and grab a jewelry store usually. We were actually 10 feet away from one, in which in a place in Ontario, and it was pretty shocking to see. Like, I grew up in a tougher neighborhood, so that was semi-normal, but it was still, these guys had guns, whether they were real or not. They had machetes, they had hatchets, and they had hammers with them. And just to see that kind of quick physical carnage, thankfully no one was killed or I think hurt in the process, but just to see how fast crime can happen and how people's lives can change was pretty nutty. Actually, I might as well just tell the story as I'm talking about the wonders of malls. And they're not really obviously wonderful. There's a lot of things that go on malls that are terrible. But again, I'm just talking from my limited experience. And hey, I worked in a mall for a long time. So, or not a long time, but I worked in a mall long enough to appreciate the ups and downs. So actually, we were out with my family, and we were visiting another family member, an extended family member, and we went to this mall in southern Ontario. And at the time, my wife was pregnant, and we had our first with us. And, I, having my ghetto senses tingling, felt that there was something off about the situation when we went to go sit down in the food court. So I first moved seats from the outer area just a little bit inside to give us a little bit less vulnerability. And my ghetto senses are tingling. My wife has an absolutely phenomenal sense of intuition when it comes to human beings. but I have but she doesn't have it much on the situational, and I definitely have the situational intuition. So, we're eating our meal, and I'm very observant for the most part, or at least that's what people tell me. And so I'm looking around, and I noticed that there was a older woman and an older man, probably grandparents of these two young girls. I have my own, young little girl with me, and so my daughter's taken a bit of a shine to the one who's probably a year older, and there's a baby. So we're sitting there, and they're kind of smiling at each other, being kids, right? So I just kind of feel the tension kind of shifting, and I see these kind of, sketchy-esque characters corner of my eye, and all of a sudden, I turn away, and the elderly lady was walking away with her older daughter. No, sorry, with the youngest daughter, and my wife and her family member was sitting very close to the jewelry store. So all of a sudden we heard this bang, clang, clang, bang, smash. And I look over to where it's happening, which is like 10, 15 feet away from us. I look back. My wife, pregnant, has grabbed our, I think, 2-year-old and is in a full sprint. Mama bear, enacted, engaged, like it's a video game, and she is moving. Now, my wife used to be a long distance runner and a sprinter, so she can move, even pregnant, and I think with the mama adrenaline, she was just gone. Now, I'm like, there's a bar between us, like just to the side here, and there is there's the glass being smashed. There's about 3 guys in there. They're holding hatchets and either real guns or fake guns and hammers. Another guy comes in. They're moving quickly, and I at this point I'm just like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to try and grab the stroller and start making my way out. I just see all these mothers and children just sprinting, running as fast as they can, pushing things over. I think people are obviously at this point afraid for their lives. Again, I grew up in a tougher neighborhood. I've seen this types of stuff before. I've seen guns. I've seen, people robbing each other. So it wasn't too alarming. But what did become alarming is since the older grandmother lady had left with the smallest grandchild, and she was now nowhere to be seen, the older gentleman, who I assumed was the grandfather, was just kind of sitting there chilling. So he just kind of felt like he was some kind of war vet, some army veteran. So I was kind of taken aback by that, and I was, in the moment as this is all the smash and grab is going. But then I noticed that the little girl was like starting to because she's little, she's only about 3. So I just see her head bobbing around, and she starts moving towards the smash and grab situation. So maybe we're about 15 or 20 seconds into this situation. My wife's pretty much gone. Her family member's gone. They've booked it. I'm like in awe at how fast my wife was moving. I'm super like, wow, I guess you could, I don't know, I should say, yeah, I would say I was pretty charmed in that moment, if you get what I'm saying. I was just like, wow, my wife's hot. That was amazing that she pulled that off. And I see this girl, her head's bobbing up and down and moving around her grandfather, who's not flinched this whole time, who I assume is her grandfather. So my daddy bear instincts kick in. My wife's was to run and protect, and mine is to kind of stand my ground. Once again, there's about 20 seconds in, I had looked, my wife is completely gone. If I run with a stroller, where am I going? I know that they're together, they have keys to the car. They're probably in the safest position possible. At this point, I'm just calling immediately, because I know that she always had her phone on her. And I see this little girl, and so what I do just out of instinct, and thankfully we had made eye contact earlier as my daughter wanted to kind of play with her, and so I just kind of grabbed her, just around, I'd say probably around the waist, and I just kind of pulled her behind me, and I put the stroller in front of us. So this is 25 seconds into the smash and grab. She's terrified, she's screaming, and so I just said to her, I go down on one knee as this is happening. I said, don't worry, I'm going to protect you. Everything's fine. Your grandfather's right here. So the smash and grab is probably into 30, 35 seconds now. I'm looking around. There's no way for me to just bolt. I have this little girl with me. The grandfather's there. I really feel in my gut, in my heart, that my wife is totally safe. She's totally fine. Because I'm telling you, she booked it. Like, I didn't even have the time to react. I'll never forget it. And part of me inside of me is like, I should be with my family. But the part of me that thinks that is like, her family member and her, they know the area, they are out first. They're going to be able to get to the car and probably get to safety. And here I am trying to run over to them, catch up. I'm going to make things even more worse and frantic. And here I have this little girl with me now. So I'm still not moving. I'm just protecting this little girl. I also don't want to be in a situation where I'm running with a little girl who's not mine. I'm in a very Anglo-Saxon neighborhood. I am not Anglo-Saxon. I have this little Anglo-Saxon girl with me that's not going to look good either. So I would say, I just kind of kept calming her down, just shielding her. Grandfather's just chilling still, and the guys just book it. They run. They've grabbed their jewelry. Probably 45 seconds in, I'm calling my wife for the second time. And then things just, the chaos is there. People I look around and people have their phones out and they're recording. And I'm like, what are y'all doing, right? Like people are like even getting closer as the guys run by with their hatchets and their guns or whatever. Of course, a lot of people are still down. But it was amazing as I did make my way towards the grandfather. He said, kind of what's going on. And it kind of, I started to see in his eyes, there was like a glaze. And so I just said to myself, okay, I'm just going to keep calling my wife. I could run out, but I don't know where they are. This could be a situation that could get bad quick if I'm not stationary. And who knows if they're just in the bathroom and then they start freaking out because I'm walking around trying to find them and they don't have their phone, because I don't know if my wife, I'm pretty sure she had her phone on her, but I wasn't 100% sure, I should say. So I just stood my ground. Nothing horrible had happened. So I just gave the little girl into the grandfather's arms. And now as I'm meandering out, just chaos everywhere. There's tables flipped everywhere. There's food everywhere, all on the floor throughout this massive food court debacle that has happened. And now the security and the police, are rolling. Or not the police, or the security are calling the police. There's a PA announcement. Everyone needs to calm down and relax. A little late, but they were doing the best they could. And finally, I got a ring from my wife, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we made it to the car." And I was just like, "All right." My sprinter wife, my long distance runner wife, had no problem being pregnant, carrying probably a 30-pound 2-year-old, and booking it to the other end of the mall through the long parking lot in the part of winter. It was just, I was like enamored, to be honest with you. And I just told her I was inside, and I just apologized. I said, I wish I was there for you. I wish I could have defended you better. And my wife just kind of laughed, and she was like, "Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I just booked it. I didn't tell you anything. I went into mama bear mode." And we had that talk because it's great for planning your family situation. I started about changes here, and now I'm into family evacuation. But it's always good to talk about those ways if you have to evacuate, meeting places, talking about who gets, when you get to the car, what do you do, who do you call first if your child goes missing, or say your child goes missing in the situation, in the kerfuffle, what do they do? It's always good to have these types of conversations to help your family just to feel confident and safer in those moments, which I hope you don't have to experience. But this is the world we live in, and so it's always good to prepare. So, as I'm walking out, I see the grandmother, and I just kind of, said to her, "Oh, because she's like frantically looking for her granddaughter," and I just said, "Oh, don't worry, she's with the grandfather or the older gentleman." She said, "Oh, thank you so much." She's like, "Did she stay with him?" I said, "Well, I just grabbed her and protected her behind the stroller." She's like, "Well, thank you. He's actually legally blind." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's why he was doing nothing." Because part of me was judging him, and I'm like, how are you not protecting this person who clearly means so much to you? She's 3 years old. But yeah, he's blind and he's kind of deaf. So just leaving her and she like immediately when I put her, I should have said this, immediately when I put her beside this older gentleman, which I assume is her grandfather, she immediately hugged him and she was crying and he hugged her and like he put her on her lap. So like obviously there was a deep affection there. That's why I left. This story is kind of, I didn't plan this story to tell a story. So I finally walk out, and it's just it was unreal to see how many mothers and children were outside together. Now, granted, it could be that the fathers are working or whatever it might be, but it was just mama bear instinct is unreal. So anyway, that was that story. Me and my family met up. We never saw that little girl and her sister and the grandparents again. But I felt like in the moment, as much as I couldn't reach out to my family, God allowed me to be there for that little girl, and I was calling. I was trying my best to connect, but again, in the mayhem, in the stampede out there, who knows what have happened? And because my wife was like the first person out, and maybe this is me just justifying maybe something I did wrong, but thankfully by God's grace it worked out in the end. I'm super super thankful for that. So, as I kind of come back to what I was saying earlier, the key is that in these changes that are happening in our world, we could always look back and say, I wish things were this way, or they were better, or they were like how it is now, like in the good old days, like when I used to wear my my Mecca, my FUBU, my Echo gear, and just enjoyed the same type of music and culture. But each generation has its problems. Back then, there was, at least in Toronto, there was a lot more issues with just teenagers congregating and people getting robbed all the time, and problems in that sense. Now it's more of a cash and grab go. The criminals seem to be a little bit more doing things online or going against the establishment, not against other people. The bullying is not so much about beating people up, but it's more about cyberbullying and hurting people in different ways. Sin has a way of changing along with the culture and the times. So, getting back to it, I think that there is a definitely a good place for certain things in our lives to us want to kind of go back to them and have a better way of communicating, or a better way of living out a type of lifestyle. Maybe like, for instance, if you think of food, right? I wish a lot of food had less preservatives in it, per se. Not all preservatives are bad. A lot of preservatives aren't, but there's more and more ingredients, and there isn't a focus more on maybe whole foods. Just a thought, just a thought. I'm just spitballing here. The main crux behind everything is that I'm trying to get at is that things are going to be different. We can wish that they were the same. Whether they're right or they're wrong, we're entitled to that thinking. But if we dwell on it, it's actually problematic, and it becomes, in many ways, cancerous to our minds. And we need to cut those behaviors out. So as much as I enjoyed the mall today, and it was really nice to go and to enjoy the big glass panes, and just the windows and the food, and just connecting with other families and people that you never meet again, just because of this kind of hub, this marketplace. It was also just a reminder that the world is different. We have online shopping now. Stores keep closing. With again 50,000 plus stores. I think in the last season shut down. And that breaks my heart, because it's we're moving into a realm where it's a lot of the big companies, or a lot of shipping companies, and there's a lot of misusage of resources and people. But through that, we can do a lot of wonderful things, and by God's grace, I think we have a great opportunity to make some changes. And I think to land the plane here on a spiritual sense, in all of these changes and in all these trials and problems and tribulations, God works through them for His good and for our best. And even though we want things to be different, if I spent more time at the mall, driving and getting in and out of the parking lots, and the food and the chaos, instead of me potentially shopping online and being more of a hermit, I might be more angry or frustrated or more miserable. So there's, the push and pull, because we tend to glamorize certain things in our lives over others. And I think we just have to be in the moment, be present, enjoy what we have. And so today I enjoyed the mall. It was really fun. It made me nostalgic, but I'm going to try to push off, thinking, oh, I wish the mall was, back, and I wish things were the way they used to be, because it's just not, and that's okay. That's all right. So yeah, if there's any comments or questions, that's wonderful. I'd love to answer any of them, or if you liked what I had to say. If you're watching the replay, I haven't missed the thousands of comments so far. I haven't missed one yet that I know of over the past 17 years or so. So please drop a comment. I'd love to chat and engage. Just so thankful that you've taken the time to watch this video thus far. And yeah, I hope to continue to make this a normal thing. I'm here doing the dishes anyway, so I might as well make a video, make a stream. I do my workouts in the morning. I do more stretching between the hours of like 9 and 11 for about 15-20 minutes. And then I do a workout a couple times a week. So hopefully, you could catch those streams. If you want, you could like and subscribe. That would really help the algorithm. Hopefully, the stories were great today, and I'm learning. This is still new to me. So if you have any suggestions or thoughts about what I'm doing, or even the audio quality, the visual, or just this concept of a dad doing dishes, to wrap up the day and just talk about what's on his heart when it comes to faith, fitness, and fatherhood, then please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. So I might as well cap it off as I have it going here, which is if you'd like to see another video in the Dad Doing Dishes playlist, just check out the video right here. And if you'd like to subscribe, right here. Just wanted to say thank you again for watching this video. I'm Stephen Tocher. Have yourself a wonderful day, evening, morning, or night. God bless.